In any pursuit of ontology, or any intellectual delving into thoughts that are unrestrained by the physicality and limited notions of necessity in the world, there arises a strong and grasping urge to share and explain these existence-broadening ideas with others. But it seems impossible, for the nagging urge is never stronger when faced with the prospect of discussing it with a Hylic. That word, Hylic, has an easy ring to it. It sounds fantastical, captivating interest in whatever moving, ethereal vision it conjures. Yet, by some it is seen as either demeaning or simply too complex to even comprehend. People think you're either stupid or too smart to be talking to them. Really, I think it's the perfect saying. A Hylic, as described by the Gnostic Christians, was a person devoid of spiritual understanding, someone who lacked such basic and fundamental comprehension of the more there was to life that they could simply not be conversed with in any matter of gnosis, or spiritual ascension. The same went for their ability to understand such things at all. Because they harbored no part, or so little of the divine essence that their bodies subsisted in, they were but agents of materiality. Like an engine without a purpose, whose steam is not complemented by its surroundings. It simply spills and operates, it continually does, it never thinks, it never processes. It's merely a tool, a mindless husk of flesh whose brain operates only to its own detriment. That last part especially, for the Gnostics themselves believed in the impurity of the physical world. These people, I'll tell you, very much still make up a vast majority of the world's population, and that thought alone is what keeps many seekers of deep knowledge and keepers of impressing faith alone and uncomforted at night, knowing that the horrors of the world are uncontained through them. As Socrates said, there is only one good, knowledge, and only one evil, ignorance. Would all men know the degeneracy imposed upon them by their lack of placed value in self and worldly examination, they would immediately suppose to replace the lacking with a fulfilling cause, and justly begin, even if for a moment, to form a world of pure good. Here I have to say, if only my groundbreaking nature of speech would be satisfied to do so, that all the purpose of things in the universe is clear and immediate. All things subsist in nature, and nature is proven to be an ever-efficient, ever-recycling, endlessly operating system of pure good, whose operations cause no harm nor death that is not resolved through birth and new life. There are no calamities, nor entities, nor desires, nor wants, nor philosophies, nor meanings that can surmount the infinitely cyclical purity of nature itself. Nothing truly dies. No deer that is shot will have its species disappear completely. And for every possible detraction that could be spoken of, every extinction, every terrible thing, it is natural selection, evolution, and biogenesis that brings about a foremost conclusion, an ultimate retort. All that makes this invisible is the disturbance of mind brought about by human beings' own flaws. Humans take up the only truly unfulfilled role in the environment of the world. They can think beyond all other animals, but do not immediately see visible the nature of their whole universe and its singular environ by the conclusions of their minds. It is materialism, and the ignorantly selfish desires imposed by intruding sin, the endlessly feeding black hole of foolishly motivated want that drives mankind to impose restrictions of mortality and uncleanliness upon itself. All of these things, which by the voice of the serpent were cast into being, are what bring the universe away from its one desire, its conclusion in eternal unity. All things desire to be one, and to be one there is but one prerequisite necessity, which is the comprehension that it is indeed true reality. All of that, all unity, all purpose conjoined, and every possibility of it imparted, is stopped by the Hylic. And so, to fulfill all that I've previously said, the Hylic is the reflection of all evil in a human being. The Hylic does not care for questions of the greater nature. The Hylic does not merely not understand, but he does not want to. He does not want to by the very nature of his being. He refuses to do so in the depths of his soul. There are no purifications for him, for he has renounced them as truth entirely. It is what exists as truth that pertains to the experience of mortality that we inhabit, and the Hylic, by nature of existing at all, wills against all possible good. Essentially, all that I'm trying to say here amounts to Hylics, in their very nature, reject the possibility that humanity can be, or even is, capable of finding this greater meaning in all things. Incapable of understanding their own place in the universe, incapable of comprehending how or why it could be different or grander for them. They cannot meet the desires of any greater will. They refuse the possibility of any higher calling. And if this restriction of definition sounds too demanding, then perhaps I am wrong in saying that most people are Hylics, but ultimately, this is how I define them. It would be nothing but a joy if that were the case, but sadly, I really do think that in these times we're seeing more Hylicism than ever before. If this is yet brought about by a historical cycle of rise and fall, well, then we are simply seeing the negative side of that now, which will surely be upended eventually. It isn't that I fear, or that anyone should fear the world fall into their lack of pondering capability, but that these people, these class of spiritual entity, represent the shadow of humankind. Jung's theory of collective consciousness could effectively be summarized for this talk by stating that all of the world has a unified conception of archetypes. Similar to what the astrological signs represent, these archetypes make up both traits, actions, and destinies. Like characters in a never-ending story, these things fall out of fashion, rise up back into prominence, and execute their lives in one goal consistently. But whether they fail or not is, well, usually up to the will of the person embodying them. The Hylic is one of these archetypes, the shadow. The shadow essentially represents everything the person wishes and realizes they were not. It is everything that we hate about ourselves, but also the fact that we realize we aren't perfect, and that in and of itself is something we hate deep inside. The shadow of humanity is that which does not think for any purpose, that whose mind is self-eliminated by its very existence, a thing that rejects its own execution of reality, something that falsifies its own perceptions into some useless mirage of anything resembling purpose or meaning. The Hylic takes this beautiful reality that it is placed within and subverts it by its own will, for no other reason than it is hypnotized by the shiny objects that materialism provides. There's a story I remember from a childhood favorite book of mine, Where the Red Fern Grows. It's about a hunter's trap. I really don't have reason to believe it's fake, since I've observed the same behavior from raccoons as the book describes. The trap is for raccoons, and essentially all that it is a steel tube or some kind of pipe-like thing with a hole in it. Now, the hole is easy enough to fit a raccoon's hand in, but not when its fist is clenched, and the only thing luring it into the hole is a small, shiny piece of tinfoil on the inside. The raccoon reaches its hand in, but its clenched fist makes it unable to get out. If only it would drop the thing, it could get out easily, but it never does, and apparently the trap is so effective that hunters use it to essentially abuse the hunting regulations in the area. The Hylic is essentially this. Blinded entirely by materialism, he grabs onto the shiny thing that he sees, not realizing that his own life is on the line by continuing to grab hold of such a useless item, shiny tinfoil. As easy as it could be to say that someone should reject all materialism and all material goods, any prolonged contemplation always pits someone in the truth that, well, there's just no value to objects besides what they mean to us. And what they mean to us can be changed at any time. Things like money are only worth the food that they buy, aren't they? And with that, desiring something so fickle, something that is only used as a transient towards an ultimate goal, like food, well, the raccoon dies. As does the Hylic, spiritually. Like the tinfoil, it is what exists as truth that pertains to the experience of mortality that we inhabit, and the Hylic, by nature of existing at all, wills against all possible good.